Hello, welcome to the channel, and something a little bit different. In front of me we have a beautiful Specialized Crux 11-speed cyclocross bike, and the opportunity came for me to go for a little blast on this on some single track, and whatever terrain we can try this on, we'll go for a little blast here on the channel. But before we try this on a different selection of single track, gravel, road and you name it, I think the first question we should ask is, what's the difference between a gravel bike and a cyclocross bike? Cyclocross bikes have a different geometry to a gravel bike. They have a higher top bar because many races for cyclocross, you have to get off your bike, run over obstacles and carry your bike. So you need more room in order to get this on your shoulder. A cyclocross bike is also designed to ride on mud, sand, grit, stone, you name it. And it also has a higher bottom bracket, meaning it's easier for clearance to getting over different obstacles. Cyclocross bike also has a shorter chainstay. These bikes are really twitchy and aggressive in their handling because on a cyclocross bike in a race, which is usually for around 90 minutes, there's some extremely fast, tight turns and they've got to be off, accelerating quickly, slowing down, getting off the bike. So the bikes are really agile. And one thing that's amazed me about this bike is just how light it is. There's a lot of talk at the minute about how a gravel bike is the only bike that you actually need for the trails, as it's a multi-tool. So let's get this bad boy out on the trails, let's take it for a spin, see what it's going to be like with that really strange drop bar position and whether you can survive with no suspension when we've got used to a full susser on a top-end mountain bike. I'm quite looking forward to this. It's going to be something different. She goes. Nice, she goes. She's running about. Just down here. See what we've got down here. God, the first thing that hits me is the lack of suspension. It's very strange. But, oh my God, it throws you all over. Oh, I'm bouncing out of the seat here. I'm sure there are techniques that these guys use. But, yeah, she's in the face. She's not hanging about. I'll tell you that. Wow. That feels very strange being down in that position, especially with the helmet on. Well, you may notice I'm completely out of breath as well. Well, that's because you're an e-biker. Well, I've had a bad knee and I'm literally setting off on cold. That's my excuse. Well, I've got to say, she doesn't hang about on these trails. I've never been here before, so I don't know what's up here. I don't think a manual on one of these. A little bit. Wow, well, what can we say? I'm forgetting some brakes there. Feels quite good. I was worried that I wouldn't think there would be as much grip with it being a really skinny tyre, but you got to remember that these cyclocross guys are doing snow, sand, grit, single track, dirt, mud. They are doing it all. I can't get that back brake to skid, but that might be because the brake's not quite set up. Wow, I'm quite impressed with that. Out of the saddle, it's quite easy to get some speed up here. And the bike just turns on an absolute dime. Now what this is like to jump. Oh, coming up. Oh, it's rough. It's rough. I don't mind telling you, it's rough. But this is really, really enjoyable. In fact, just put the hands back here. So here on the bars, obviously we've got our brakes here. These called hoods. As you've seen, this is how we change gears. And it feels very, very forward over the bars, but that's because the cyclocross is generally a very aggressive bike. It's very, very, very responsive and very, very twitchy, which I suppose is what you want when you want to be flying around corners, picking it up, putting it on your shoulder and blasting off again. But so far, I'm pleasantly surprised. I would be interested to find out how this feels differently compared to an actual gravel bike. But maybe that's something on the channel. If I can find one, somebody who's got one to lend me one, we'll go off and we'll do that as well. This forward riding position is very strange. It does take a while to get used to it. And of course, not having any of that e-power that we've lost up the hills doesn't seem like a problem at all, because the bike is just so light and agile that it isn't really an issue. And it just move. But I do feel, for me personally, that a dropper post would make my life easier. Though I do have a serious eye injury, so I have trouble with getting the head down. My head has to be almost horizontal in order for me to be able to see properly, otherwise I see double. Let me talk about that in another video. But regarding mulch and all this sandy, muddy, leafy goodness, it just absolutely sails over it. I'm quite impressed at just how easy this thing goes over things. And that matter of we have in mountain biking, where you don't want to be one with the bike, you want to be completely off the bike, means that getting really off here around corners and getting the weight out on that outer pedal just feels great. You absolutely fly around. It'd be interesting to go down a track, say like this, with a mountain biker and see whether you can keep up. I think on the uphills, even on an eve, I think this bike would do very, very well. But I'm very surprised so far just how nippy this thing is and how easily it rolls over stuff. I think it will give me a bit of an headache after a while, but that's probably just down to technique and me not being used to a cyclocross. I think the last time I was a hot sweaty mess like this was up in the Peak District, when it was absolutely belting it down with the sun. Do e-bikes make you fitter? Mind you, I haven't been on the bike for what, 3 odd weeks. That's my excuse anyway. And I'm belting around, having some real good fun on this bike. I'm very, very surprised. Although one thing I have noticed is, because there is no suspension on this bike, I've got a bleeding headache, but that might be because I didn't bring any water out for me. I wasn't going to do a massive ride today because of my knee, so it may be dehydration. Or the fact, as I mentioned, I'm just blasting around the woods, having some real good fun on this bike. But I'm going to head back to the car now. It's not going to be a really massive long video today, but we will get back to the car and I'll let you know what I think of this Specialized Crux cyclocross bike. And is this bike for you? And what do we really think? It's a beautiful looking thing, I'll tell you that. Beautiful. So what does Boots on the Ground think of cyclocross and this beautiful Specialized Crux? Well, I don't mind telling you, this thing can absolutely fly down some of those trails as long as it's smooth and not too rocky. But that might come down to my lack of experience when it comes to cyclocross. It's very, very fast and very capable. Not having a dropper post is really going to take some getting used to. I genuinely feel that you need to really pick your line when you're going down some of those downhills, because the bike is so twitchy and aggressive. You are in such a forward position over the bars that if you don't get it right and you hit a big rock, well, you're going to be flying and you're going to have a face full of gravel. Absolute hats off to those cyclocross riders out there. They are so fit. Even though this bike weighs nothing, climbing, riding downhill, getting around corners, speeding up and slowing down and constantly start and start and stop. These guys are absolute rock stars and very, very fit. So it's opened my eyes. Maybe it's time for me to get back to the gym and try and get a little bit fitter once the knee's in a better place. Getting into that different riding position from up on the hoods down to the bottom, the drop bars, it's not for me, and that's purely because I have a serious eye and head injury. I've got plates and staples in my face, and I can't look up or down properly with this eye. So getting down into that position means it's very difficult for me in order to be able to see straight. This ride and going out on this bike has been a massive advantage for me, knowing that this is not quite for me. Now, whether a gravel bike with its a little bit relaxed geometry and a little bit more suitable to long rides over 30 miles or so, maybe something that we'll look at on the channel, whereas this bike is mainly for an hour and a half of absolutely flying round corners, down hills, throwing it up over your shoulder and riding all over about, doing the okey cokey and shaking it all about. Awesome bike, but honestly, I can genuinely say that I think the mountain bike is just more comfortable for me. I feel safer on it, but that may be because I've had less than an hour and a half on this cyclocross bike. But it may be something we'll try again, and it's really opened my eyes to wanting to try different genres within the sport of cycling, and especially some road bike riding. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions about cyclocross, gravel bikes or e-mountain bikes, you can leave them in those comments box below and I'll try and answer all your questions. Hope you've enjoyed the video. It's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from the Specialized Crux Cyclocross. I'm off to see Heidi. Don't tell her.
Hey, oh, now then.